Welcome to Shepherd's Coffee Talk. You know, we're all getting older and, the world is out there and we're looking to see how can we live longer and how can we live better. And Jacquelin Holzman, who is a dear friend and who was mayor of Ottawa for how many years, Jackie?
6 years.
6 years. And this coffee mug I picked for you because it is so perfect. Be bold, be brave, be you. And Jackie has always participated in Ottawa and done so many amazing things in the city.
For the community.
You remember when you were at CTV?
Of course. 1991 to 1997 was when Jackie was mayor. I call you Jacquelin Holzman. It's the journalism background, I guess. But so much a part of our community and so invested. I read that you got married at 19 and had your family and started doing volunteer work. You see, this is how it happens. Then you become mayor of the city. But what is it about what happened when you were young doing volunteer work that actually led you to becoming mayor?
It's interesting because I remember as a child during the Second World War, living in Washington, D.C., and going around with my little wagon collecting newspapers for the Second World War because you needed newspapers or tinfoil or whatever. So volunteering has been a part of my family. My mother used to knit and crochet and sew for all sorts of fundraising events, and so it was part of our family. And my sister Evelyn Greenberg, she always gives of her musical ability. So it's part of us. My children are doing it as well, my grandchildren, and it really is something to do. As when somebody said, what you do, or you get what you live, whatever you say, you make a life with what you live and what you give. Anyhow, it's very confusing at this day. But we're here to talk about, in Ottawa, can you live as long as you can, as well as you can if you're elderly, frail, or diagnosed with a life-ending illness at any age? And is the community there to support you?
So
we're
now
mobilizing the community.
Now we've gone to another layer, post-politics. Now you're working with a group to develop an environment, sort of a vibe, where people feel like whatever their choice is, whatever their situation is, there's somebody who's got their back, outside of maybe their doctor's office.
Actually, the doctor and the medical profession are going to be only about 10 or 12% of your life. It's your community, really? Whatever your community is, whether it's your condominium association or your church group or your bowling club or your book club, that's who's going to help you get through those days. And we're all going to die. There's no question about it.
100%.
Everybody is going to die. But it's how do you live as well as you can. But mainly, how can we mobilize the community to make it happen? And the sad thing is we all want the best quality of life, but very few of us have given any thought to what is that best quality of life. So we have to think about it. It's not the same for you or for your viewers, but if you don't think about it, and if you don't discuss it with other people, and you don't share it with other people, then how are you going to be able to live that quality of life, especially when you're not able to speak for yourself?
Right.
So this is what we're trying to do, mobilize communities.
The name is beautiful, Compassionate Ottawa. It makes you feel like whatever's going on with you is okay and somebody is there to support you. So what will Compassionate Ottawa do as it evolves? How will it support people?
We're looking for people to support each other.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is to sensitize people, to anybody who's watching this, anybody who listens to us. Have you even thought about what does your mother want? What do you want as you get older, especially if you're no longer able to speak for yourself? And we're modeling this on a Compassionate City Charter that comes out of the UK just since 2015. And it talks about what does a community need. There's 12 or so social changes that need to take place so that all elements of the community are there so that if they are with somebody who is frail, dying, caregiving, they know what to do and what to say. Because people don't know what to do, and they don't know what to say. You're working with somebody who you know or you've heard is a caregiver, or they're ill themselves, or you don't know, which is really sad. And so instead of saying something, you say nothing.
Exactly.
So how do we all support each other?
Yes. How do we open this conversation? Yes. That you made an excellent point. Everybody's going to die. Surprise, not. We know it, and yet because we have human emotion, we want to kind of not talk about those things because it makes us feel uncomfortable. But really, when we open the dialogue and start to make it okay to talk about how we feel in general, but especially about end of life or as we mature, you know, really to me, growing older is a privilege. It's not a curse. So let's make it the best we can.
Indeed.
So then you talk about wanting to open conversation to help us be there for each other. How do you facilitate that?
Okay, so we have trained facilitators, and we're talking to church groups, to condominium associations. We even did a presentation to 23 docents at the National Art Gallery.
Perfect.
Talking about dying, talking about living, and not death, because death can happen in many different ways now.
Yeah.
And we don't say one way is better than the other,
Sure.
but we say until that time happens, how do you live?
Right.
And I always talk about a cartoon, a Peanuts cartoon, and there's Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and they're sitting at the edge of the dock looking out at the lake, and Charlie Brown says to Snoopy, you know, Snoopy, one day we're all going to die. And Snoopy says, yes, but on every other day we're going to live. And that's what community, that's what the community is all about, and that's what Compassionate Ottawa is all about.
Yes.
How can you live
Yes.
as long as you can, as well as you can? And we will go out and talk to all sorts of groups, libraries, anybody.
Do you help with the question now, with the right to die? And people being able to decide when and where they
I
want
think
to
that's
die?
very, very important. And we don't condemn it, we don't condone it. As an organization, we have said, look, you can decide. If you want to know more about it, we'll put you in touch with Dying with
Right.
Dignity or whatever the resources are. And but we're talking about palliative care.
Yeah.
And palliative care is not known. People think palliative care is the last 2 weeks of life, but it's not. It's the minute that somebody says, we no longer can cure you, or you're diagnosed with a long-standing illness that's not going to be cured. You need to get into the palliative care system right away. You have a support network, and then you build your own community to support you. So we started out with our tagline was reimagining palliative care. But now, and because that's very important, so it's still important, but it's more important developing the communities. It's more than one community.
Yes.
And it could be your pharmacist. It could, somebody says to us at a meeting, we have nobody. We're all alone. Well, you know, but you do have a pharmacist, or you do have something, you do have your newspaper, or wherever you're living. So we're trying to encourage people to reach out and bring together a community.
Well, it's important too, the idea of community. You know, one of the sort of sad facts about the way we've evolved as our society is that as we get older, we tend to be more isolated from one another, when indeed we need to be more connected than ever, because that's when we feel irrelevant. That's when we feel like we've fallen off the dial, when all our friends are kind of moving away or passing away, we feel like we're alone again. And really, that's something we need to change. So this initiative is extremely powerful because it takes the fear away from talking about things that everybody's going to experience in some way or can contribute to in some way. You could be a young person wanting to be involved in this conversation. So you can help.
We help people start the conversation. So we've met with people, work group people, for example, and they say, well, you know, wait, never mind my family, my parents, but how do I talk to my teenage children? I said, okay, there are ways of doing it, and here's the hook. Find something in the news, find something that's happened, and you start the conversation with the children so that they know that you are going to die, but they know that you're thinking about it. And there's a lot of examples. There's a lot of.
And that it's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay to
It was
die.
always taboo, right?
Yeah, of
It was
course.
always, let's not talk about it until it's right there on your doorstep.
course.
So we're going to be
Preparation helps a lot.
Yeah, with Kathie Cordes Miller. She wrote a book called Talking About Death Won't Kill You. She's coming to Ottawa, and that's a good book. Read the book, Talking About Death Won't Kill You. And another good book is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. And they all talk about how do you want to live? How do you want to live?
Well, you know, we're so lucky in Ottawa to have you continue to give
Champion.
so many hours and time and efforts to help our world here. So thank you very much, Jackie, for joining us.
We salute you for your service, Jackie.
for the many,
And I
many
see-
years.
And I salute both
And
of
you
you.
continue at your age. You're a miracle. You're a wonderful angel.
You don't get older, you get better.
Yeah.
That's right. Ageless Jackie has been our guest today. Thank you for joining us.